that away. Tonight, I'm going to be talking about something that many of you are probably familiar with on some level. Gay people. And if you've never talked to a gay person before, here's your chance to listen to one speak for a whole 10 minutes. Yeah. But why would I be talking about this at Tufts? I mean, if any of you have been to the Coming Out Day rally, or at least to a TDC performance, we know that Tufts is a pretty tolerant place, at least for gay guys, and certainly more so than many other communities in the country. But like the rest of America, we still value heterosexuality over homosexuality. Freshman year, a male friend of mine was making out with another gay guy in a frat, like you do. And one of the brothers approached the two of them and told them to either stop what they were doing or leave. Stop making out at a frat? Really? Okay, so it's clear that there are certain places, even on our campus, where homosexuality just isn't welcome. So what we need then is more tolerance, right? And studies show that tolerance is closely linked with familiarity. But unfortunately, it's estimated that only 4 out of 10 Americans have a close friend or relative who identifies as LGBT. So this means that 60% of Americans are less likely to support the queer community simply because they don't know any gay people. Or at least they don't know that they know any gay people. So what's the solution then? Everybody needs a gay friend or two. Well, dispersing the populations of San Francisco and the East Village across the country just isn't going to happen. So we need something else. We need a tool by which Americans can come to know gay people as people with thoughts and feelings and, yes, sex drives. But we already have that tool. Ben gave it away. It's called television. With TV series, we can really follow characters throughout seasons and get to know them and almost feel like they're our friends. An example of this would be the show Friends. And since 99% of Americans have a TV in their household, we have the potential to allow millions of people to at least feel like they have a gay friend. Unfortunately, though, a recent study by the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation found that only 2.9% of the scripted characters on television this season identify as LGBT, or fall into that category. That's not a lot of people. We need more gay characters on television. But wait, we've already had a show, a really popular show, that features gay people and talks about being gay all the time. Yeah. For those of you who are not familiar with Will and Grace, it was a sitcom that was on in the late 90s and early 2000s about 4 white New Yorkers, 2 gay men, their straight friend Grace, haha, and their psychotic friend Karen, who is apparently bisexual. She's had lesbian experiences that are only alluded to. And what this show did that was really important was that it showed gay men in an environment where they were loved and valued and could talk about being gay. Will and Grace offered a sort of gay discourse that wasn't available in such a large forum before this. But unfortunately, what the show also did was it created these 2 gay archetypes, right? So on the one hand, you have a Will, who's essentially a straight man who happens to be gay. And on the other hand, you have a Jack, who is flamboyant and effeminate and loves theater, and he's afraid of everything, right? Notably, he's afraid of lesbians. It is astounding, and not to mention offensive, how much Karen's alleged bisexuality and lesbians in general are just a running joke of what is supposed to be the gay show. But remember that Will and Grace won 16 Emmys over its 8 seasons on television, and so clearly it wasn't just gay people watching the show. But there's a problem there, right? Imagine for a second that you knew nothing about gay people except for what you learned on Will and Grace. You would then be forced to believe that gay people were either white men who fall into one of these 2 archetypes, or that they don't really exist. This idea is reflected when we look at the breakdown of that 2.9% of gay characters on television this season. Okay, so it's a lot of guys. Only 1 transgendered character, a lot of white people, and interestingly, that those 8 black characters are all on cable TV, so there are no gay black people on broadcast television. So there's a lot of the queer experience missing here, right? And we already learned that just showing a couple gay white dudes on TV isn't going to cut it. We need to give Americans a look into a more multidimensional queer experience. And I think that in the past few years, we've started taking steps in the right direction. And a lot of this has to do with the transition from sitcoms to dramas. With dramas, we have more of an opportunity to really dive in and get to know characters and see them from different angles. So let's take a look at a show that has taken advantage of this shift to kind of give Americans some gay friends. Glee is a show about high school show choir, so it shouldn't be any surprise to anybody that it's filled with gay characters. But it's not just about these gay characters, it's about tacky renditions of popular songs, no offense to the bubs, but so it attracts all different kinds of people. And what's important about this is not just the presence of these queer characters, but the fact that they're talking about and coming to terms with their sexualities throughout the series. So there are 2 main gay couples on the show, and if there's one thing we can learn, it's that gay couples match all the time. There are effeminate gay guys. There's a gay bully who's closeted and beats up other gay kids because he hates himself. And there's a closeted lesbian who's in love with her best friend. There's this conversation about the difference between bisexuality and homosexuality and teasing that apart. And there's a girl who doesn't really identify in any way. She just feels what she feels, and she's fine with that. And so by showing all of these characters in different parts of the coming out process and dealing with it in different ways, Glee identifies the questioning and investigation of one's sexual orientation as a normal part of the growing up experience. That's huge. No other teen drama this popular has ever taken on this challenge in such a concrete way. And there's an interaction here happening between the viewers and the characters. The characters offer a viewer a sort of prompt for discussing his or her own sexuality, and gives a better look into the varieties and the intricacies of the coming out process. Personally, I can't help but wonder what if Glee were on when I was in high school. I really think that me and all of my closeted gay friends would have been forced to talk about our sexualities a little bit earlier, and maybe that would have made the coming out process a bit easier too. Okay, so Glee is introducing this younger audience to what it means to be gay and kind of helping with this coming out process. But let's take a look at a show that's geared towards an older audience that questions the very role that the gay community plays in our society. Okay, True Blood is, yes, another vampire show, but it at least started out as an allegory for gay rights. The premise is that this synthetic blood called True Blood has been invented, so vampires no longer need to feed on human blood to survive. Go with me here. So this has prompted the whole coming out of the coffin movement. The VRA, the Vampire Rights Act, has just been passed. Vampire marriage is legal in certain states, and all of this is surrounded by a dialogue that questions whether or not vampire Americans should be integrated into human American culture. They don't really do a lot to hide the allegory. And what's interesting about True Blood is that this is also the show with the highest number of LGBT characters on television, but it's more about species identity rather than sexual identity. In other words, people don't really care if you're gay or straight, they care if you're human or vampire. Sexuality becomes, in many cases, a non-issue. And this normalization of queerness does not reflect reality, but neither does the rest of the show. I mean, the reason that most of these vampires are having sex with vampires or people of the same gender is because after several centuries they've gotten bored of the opposite gender, so they switch. I mean, wouldn't you? But since this is a fantasy show, it has this sort of flexibility that allows it to depict what could be rather than what is. Homosexuality is very present on True Blood. I mean, it's an HBO show, But it's not put on a pedestal, which for many gay people is a relief. And from a gay perspective, you have this feeling of, oh, this is what it must be like to watch TV if you're straight, because your sexual preference isn't an issue to be dealt with on the show. It's not the reason that somebody like you is on the show. Now, I want to emphasize the idea that you can do this sort of analysis through many lenses in terms of race, class, gender, ability, sexual orientation, and look at all the ways that these identities interact with one another. The ways in which all kinds of non-dominant groups are represented in the media is crucial to our understanding of people who are different than we are. And I know that we value the time that we have to just shut our brains off and watch TV, but the truth is, we're soaking in all of this stuff all the time, so we have to stay diligent. Like Will and Grace, or like any other show on television, neither Glee nor True Blood is perfect. In fact, many people argue that they just create more stereotypes. But I'll leave that up to you. Question whatever it is that you watch on screen, and more importantly, talk about it with the people around you. Because I think that, like television, we at Tufts have, made some steps in the right direction towards equal representation. But we've still got a lot of work to do. And I am confident that sparking these conversations will work wonders in getting us there. Thank you very much.